Today on Locked On Rockies. Well, that's a Coors Field game if I've ever seen one.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 23rd day of July in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day is talk Rockies baseball, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can let me know what's on your mind. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes, just like Patrick Joyce says, diehard Red Sox fans, but I go to a lot of Yard Goats game and I'm quickly becoming a Rockies fan. I'm hooked on your podcast. Well, thank you so much, Patrick. Really enjoyed it. And or Moon Unit saying throwback to Todd Helton in backyard baseball in 2003. Good times. Absolutely. You got to have Todd playing first base. Well, that roster in that game, absolutely stacked. But today on the pod, we are going to be talking about, of course, the game last night against the Rockies hitting more home runs. We'll mention a little bit about German Marquez heading to the IL again, and we'll dive into all that and more coming up on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. But before we dive into everything, this episode of Locked On Rockies is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. Okay, so Rockies, right? Last night, you're kind of sitting there, and we're kind of following an Austin Gomber script, right? We're except with a little difference being the damage not being done in the first inning. But Gomber's cruising. Rockies get a 4-0 lead. You're sitting there. You're like, all right, we're chilling. We're having a good time. And then 4 runs are scored. And then from there, it's just a little bit of everything. But that's kind of what you expect in a game from Coors Field. And that's where the experience of being at Coors Field should come into play. Now, let's be clear here. The Rockies were bailed out by a missed call. It's not a questionable call. It was a straight up missed call there that the Rockies benefited from. But that's the game of baseball. The Rockies have been on the others. How many times have the Rockies been on the other side of that call this year? Why did Jake Cave rocket up in the popularity after the blown call that went against the Rockies? It's clearly infuriating. And the last two teams to come into Coors Field are not happy with the way that the umpiring staff is performing. Because when was the last time you saw? I don't know if it was back-to-back games, because I don't think it happened in the finale. I can't remember. But when do you see back-to-back series or back-to-back games in which the managers of the opposing team are thrown out? I mean, if in case you missed it, it didn't happen until late, but Cora there, the manager for the Red Sox, came out and got ejected in extra innings. And again, I can't really sit here and blame him. It's one of those umpire performances in which the close calls and stuff, they did go the Rockies' way. The Rockies were the benefit of the doubt of that, but the Rockies also got unlucky too. The Rockies also, they still have to deal with stuff. The Red Sox got back into that game. The Red Sox had the lead. The Red Sox had multiple opportunities to win that game. It's not just that blown call. There's a million other things to go into it. But why I bring that up is it's because in this game, and more so of late in the last, kind of part of the last month and some other stretches, it just seems like the Rockies are able to handle the adversity of things a little bit more, especially when they're at home. The team is clearly confident in that, in playing at Coors Field, confident being there, and confident against the teams that roll through there. It's so what I like about that game yesterday, even though the bad inning from Gomber, even though there's this, that, and the other thing with that you can poke at, which we'll dive into. In this instance, the Rockies handled it. The Rockies managed it. The Rockies got the job done. And that hasn't always been the case this season. That hasn't always been the best option for the or not the best option, but the result for the Rockies. So in a game like that against a team that has surprised, a team that I know is the Red Sox are kind of weird this year, just like a few other teams, decimated by injuries, but still playing good ball. So that's a good team coming into town, and the Rockies again are doing the job by getting good timely hits, by having professional at bats. Another great thing there too, that the Rockies took a step in the right direction, and a big reason why it helped, or why the Rockies are able to hold on. You get 15 runs in that game, right? Or not 15 runs, 15 hits in that game, and you score 9 runs. You know, it helps in that situation when you draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 walks. 7 walks for the Rockies to add on to those 15 hits. No errors. You play in the clean defense there. And, you know, all while the Rockies, a rarity, tied in their strikeouts and walks. Usually it's the other way around, but the at-bats were better for the Rockies. The Rockies took the tough pitches. The Rockies went up there and their approach at the dish is better. And that includes people down the line as well. Stallings, a walk. Hilliard, a walk. Shunk, a walk. Rogers, a walk. Tolia, a walk. Blackman, a walk. The point is, that's how you're going to win those types of games. That's how you win. That's how you win the ball games when it's that crazy, when it's that wacky, when it's that Coors Field and that long. Every single member of the Rockies offense getting a hit last night. Every single member of the Rockies offense getting on base twice in the game last night. Michael Tolia getting on base twice with a hit and a walk. Brendan Rodgers a hit and a walk. Jake Cave a hit and a walk. Jacob Stallings 2 hits and a walk. And then, of course, we had the big home runs. It's something that has been huge for the Rockies. And we're going to dive into some of the home run numbers over the past couple of weeks coming up in segment number 2. But it goes to show you that the offensive approach, the Rockies approach, is getting better. The Rockies offense of late has been better. It's not great. It's still not the best, but when you look at it now, the Rockies have been scoring runs. The Rockies haven't scored 1 run or fewer since the one game against the Reds there. The Reds series was a bit of the tough one. And so again, the big story here for the Rockies is, where does this momentum go throughout the rest of this home stretch with 2 more games remaining today and tomorrow for the Rockies against the Red Sox before it's a long road trip in California. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from this improved offense approach. I'm liking what I'm seeing from the Rockies' ability to get on base. But at the same time, it's also the context, of course, right? We do know how much better and how much more comfortable they are, but it's just good to see that the team, they look more comfortable up at the dish. They look more confident up at the dish. It's good to see, especially when you're going up against in a situation in a guy that strikes out a lot of batters there in the starter for the Red Sox. So another good thing there too is it's just the defense was, you could see in that game. Right. And the Red Sox made a couple of big plays, especially that one against Brenton Doyle and extras there off the ricochet. But the defense really matters, right? The error of the Red Sox cost them. The booted balls and misplays for the Red Sox cost them. It matters when you have that elite backbone defense there for you as well. One of the key things that probably went a little unnoticed there was late in that ballgame where Brenton Doyle makes 2 plays, and I can't remember if this was in the 12th. I think it might have been, but 2 high fly balls into center. Brenton Doyle makes the play, but the runner isn't able to advance to third because they're worried too much about the Brenton Doyle arm, holding him at second, preventing the runs. And, you know, it wasn't pretty, but the bullpen did enough yesterday. The bullpen, especially when you're looking at the fact of the matter that Victor Vodnik and both Justin Lawrence have to go 4 innings total between the 2 of them. Yes, Vodnik gives up the earned run, but between the 2 of them, they both navigated some huge jams, especially Justin Lawrence there. Probably, I would say arguably Justin Lawrence's best performance of the season. Come in when the game's on the line, the game's close, the game's in extras, the game's getting late, and Justin Lawrence comes in there and gets a strikeout, lets up the hit, but does no damage for the Red Sox can do no damage against Lawrence there in the 11th and the 12th after Victor Vodnik and Jalen Beeks were tagged for both a run each there. But you can't deny the fact that Gomber started sharp and did enough to at least hang in there. Both the starters kind of took their lumps yesterday in that game for both teams, but both of them, while they both navigated it as well. Neither one came out smelling like a rose, but both of them were able to get themselves back into a groove to help their teams and go a little bit deeper into the game. So always good to see. And you wish Gomber could have gotten to that full 6 innings worth of work, but 5 2/3 there as well. So again, Gomber's been good. I mean, it's not greatness from Gomber. It's not Cy Young domination, but keeping your team in the ball games and being able to bounce back and handle that adversity is always a good sign there as well. So in reality, the Rockies held on. The Rockies answered. The Rockies responded. Something that we haven't always seen the Rockies do this year, and that was great to see, especially after having the lead early and then coming back and finding themselves back in a tie game situation. Didn't let that get them down too much there, and got themselves back into action, which is great to see. Rockies now have won 4 of their last 5 games. And so nice little stretch here going on for the Rockies. Let's hope it continues here in game number 2. Let's talk about another thing that's been really helpful for the Rockies and something that has played a big role in the recent offensive surge for the Roccos, and that is the long ball. Let's talk about that coming up in segment number 2 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, this episode of Locked On Rockies is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about. I can't tell you enough how much I believe in the summer baseball road trip. Maybe just a couple of ballparks, maybe a couple of ballparks in your region, maybe a couple of ballparks in a part of the country you've never seen before. Baseball is the perfect thing to plan a trip around, and Booking.com's got you covered. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay. From hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this season. So maybe you want to head to Phoenix to go catch a game against the Diamondbacks. Maybe you want to go see that powerhouse Dodgers team in the city of bright lights, L.A. Maybe you want to take a trip to San Diego and hit the beach. All sorts of great options for you while following your Rockies on the road. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. We're also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and they got you covered all season long. And it's not just baseball they got you covered with. They got you covered for all the sports. So maybe you're a WNBA fan and you want to bet on Caitlin Clark. Maybe you're interested in seeing what action they might have for the Olympics, and you want to try out and see what's going on there. You can see all the action for yourself and more. Find the props, the money line bets, all the good stuff that you want to take on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. They got customer boosts and bonus all summer long, going on daily. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Hey, if you need a new sports hub, if you need a new channel to watch, you need a new thing to fill your time in the morning, well, check out Locked On Sports Today. They got you covered with 24/7 sports coverage. You can also find all your Rockies play-by-play action on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app, and on the post-game shows, the postcasts with Danilo Piro over there on Locked On Denver Sports. Don't miss your post-game breakdowns, giving you immediate reaction from the ball field. Well, not always from the ball field, but breakdowns of what we saw from the ball field over there on Locked On Sports Denver. Go check that out. Go support that show as well, and go enjoy more Rockies baseball content. Okay, big thing that's been going on for the Rockies here of late is the long ball. The Rockies are hitting home runs. In the last 7 days, the Rockies have hit 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 home runs, and that comes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different players. Ezequiel Tovar leading the way with 2 home runs in that stretch. But zooming out to the last 15 days here, and the Rockies have hit 11, 15, 18, 21, 23, 25 home runs for the Rockies in the last 15 days. And in that time as well, if we're looking at, and I'm sure I'm going off of the MLB website, so I think they're actually counting days, not just offense, not just games. I don't think. Maybe it might just be games, but regardless, the long ball. It is clearly something that was missing for the Rockies for a long, long time. But as we're seeing the power is developing, and the power is coming from surprising enough characters. You don't sit there and you say Michael Toglia with leading the way with 6. That's not that surprising. No, it's not. But it's good to see him consistently hitting home runs at the major league level. And it's good to see, oh, this is what happens when you actually get Michael Toglia into the game consistently. Remember, Michael Toglia, before he was sent back down to the minors earlier this year, was leading the Rockies in home runs when he was sent down. And then the Rockies had a massive power dip without Toglia in the lineup. I know Michael Toglia isn't Barry Bonds or some of these huge other heavy power hitters, but 6 home runs in the last 15 days is a pretty darn good deal, especially when you consider the fact of the matter that when you're looking at home run threats for the Rockies aren't really picking that up, that slack up too much. Tovar's got 4, Blackmon's got 3, Brendan Rodgers only with 2, but now with Elias Diaz and Nolan Jones on the IL, they haven't been hitting home runs. Ryan McMahon hasn't left the yard. Jacob Stallings hasn't left the yard. I don't think Stallings necessarily much of the power threat anyway. But the point is, the long ball is back. And not only does that mean the long ball is back, or not only does that mean the long ball and home runs are good just because they're part of the 3 true outcomes. They get you the run. The Rockies are scoring. The Rockies are scoring more runs in that time. The Rockies are putting runs on the board. The Rockies are hanging in there in slugfests and hanging in there against good teams and against elite pitching here. The Rockies against them, and had their chances against the Mets there, in which they did score, but I know the wins didn't come as much. But the runs and the offense generation is it's in a much better spot. It's still got a long way to go, and there's still a lot of stuff you're looking at, especially when you're looking at like the OBP of players. But in time of this increased home run hitting, no surprise that RBI's up. Michael Toglia has 9 RBI in the last 15 days. Brenton Doyle has 10. Ezequiel Tovar has 10. Charlie Blackmon has 5. Sam Hilliard has 5. Jake Cave has 6. Brendan Rodgers has 3. So it's important to note how much those RBI go up when the home run and basic math, right? Where you're hitting the home run, you're scoring, you're driving people in. But it's a great sign. And it's even highlighted again by the fact that Brenton Doyle continues to hit home runs. Brenton Doyle continues to be one of the best, if not the best, offensive threat on the Rockies outside of probably Ezequiel Tovar. I mean, the OPS of Toglia, Doyle, and Tovar over the last 15 days has all been over 1. Michael Toglia, 1.03. Brenton Doyle, 1.122. Ezequiel Tovar, 1.284. That's awesome. I mean, that mixed in with, Toglia, the batting average ain't great for Toglia there because he's got the 13 strikeouts in that time as well, still going through it. But that OPS is great. The slugging in the mid-7s as well for Toglia. Brenton Doyle, his batting line over the last 15 days, 325 average, 372 OBP, a slugging of 750. And then you get to Ezequiel Tovar, 439 average, 455 OBP, a slugging of 829, and an OPS of 1.284. 0 for 30 who? And so that's a good point as well. Listen to you look at that Ezequiel Tovar stat line, and you remember, wasn't that the guy scuffling? Wasn't that the young guy going through it and dealing with it and going through the grind of the baseball season? It was. And he responds by having a 2-week stretch of dominance and walk-off victories, adding one up, adding a third walk-off for Ezekiel Tovar in his second season of ball. He continues to just impress, and he's doing all that while not being 100% coming off of that bug that he was fighting yesterday. The point is, there's still long ways to go. The strikeouts still a problem. There's the overall pitching status questionable. But right now, we're seeing the Rockies make adjustments on offense. Right now, we're seeing the Rockies be a better threat on offense. And as we're talking about it, Jake Cave in the last, Sam Hilliard has an OPS of over 1 in the last 15 games. Really great for him to be getting his opportunities and his chances. And to when he's played in these last couple of games, he's been able to perform. And you can't argue with that. Jake Cave, of course, providing the spark plug still for this team. Brendan Rodgers, not a good stretch for him over the last 15, scuffling. Same with Ryan McMahon as well. But baseball, up and down. That's how it goes. Okay, so there's that. Let's talk a little bit about the bummer news of the day with German Marquez going back to the IL, and let's wax poetically about Trevor Story, because I know Red Sox fans are probably frustrated with the injury stuff, but you won't see me talking poorly of my man Trevor Story anytime soon. Let's do that and wind down the show coming up in segment number 3. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. We are also brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. You love fantasy sports. You know your knowledge. You're watching the Rockies. Why not put your knowledge to the test and compete against the numbers? Yes, it's the numbers that you're competing with, not those people that are spending all the time listening to the fantasy sports app, grabbing up all your favorite players and making sure that you can't watch what you want to watch. No. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Bretton Doyle hits, Ezekiel Tovar hits, Charlie Blackmon walks, Cal Quantrill strikeouts, Kyle Freeland strikeouts. You just pick more or less on those stat projections and you watch the action and see what happens. You can turn $10 into $1,000 by winning right now with PrizePicks with just as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And you can even see all the action with Team USA, including basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, and more. See all the action for yourself on the PrizePicks app. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast and Network. Shout out to all our everydayers out there for making Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day. And remember, folks, get your 24/7 sports fix on the Locked On Sports Today YouTube channel. Also available on the Amazon Fire TV app. Also, go check out SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app for all your Rockies play-by-play action all season long. Okay, German Marquez back on the IL for the Colorado Rockies, which is a bummer. It's a right elbow inflammation, and it makes me sad. It really does make me sad because I was really not only that, it kind of clouds a little bit of maybe what you do at the trade deadline now, right? If you're not 110% confident in German Marquez's ability to pitch for the rest of the season, are you going to trade Cal Quantrill? Are you going to try to trade Austin Gomber? Are you going to try to trade these guys that looked like they were a little bit easier to move on from, given the fact that the rotation was getting healthy? Freeland's back, Herman's back, and I'm really not putting it. Senza in September, I guess. I'm not putting too much stock in Senza, but it's just those two arms mostly returning there. So I that will cloud the trade deadline a little bit. And here's what Bud Black told MLB.com. Through Friday and Saturday, German's arm just didn't bounce back from the start in New York, manager Bud Black says. He was fired up in New York. He was turning the ball loose, and it was probably the right thing to do to put him on the injured list. Better safe than sorry. We'll let this calm down a little bit, hopefully just a couple weeks. Black said the new issue is in a different spot than where the surgery was and different from the tricep soreness on his previous setback toward the end of his rehab. The inflammation is on the inside of his elbow, essentially his upper forearm. It stems probably from his last game in Hartford and again in New York, where his pitch count got up and the intensity was raised. Oof, man, that's tough. And it's something that you're going to have to just watch as we go through the season. I mean, elbow tightness, all that stuff. I mean, inflammation, all that jazz. And coming back from recovery of Tommy John, I would imagine I got the Rockies playing this one very safe. I got the Rockies playing this one very low key here in for this one. I don't see this being something that the Rockies are going to rush. And now, like I said, I think it changes the outlook of the team at the trade deadline. So we'll see, because this injury is basically going to lead us up. If it's just a couple weeks, this injury is going to take us up to the trade deadline and maybe past it here as well. So the Rockies are going to have to make that decision sooner rather than later if this German Marquez injury, re-injury or different injury or whatever it is going to make an impact and change the way the Rockies are going to handle the trade deadline. Also wanted to give a shout out to Trevor Story for returning to Coors Field, obviously not playing due to the fact that he unfortunately has been just fighting the injury bug himself. But it's a bummer, man, because the Red Sox would be a lot more fun. The Trevor Story, the thing with Trevor Story, I mean, he is the type of guy where the game is better when he's on the field, because it's not only the defense, but the guy hitting long balls and hitting them a million miles away and hitting them a million miles an hour. I mean, the Trevor Story just embodies a lot of what I love to watch in baseball. Some of my favorite things: big, flashy plays and a big offensive threat. So I'd love to see him out on the field there, but I'm not so much doing damage, I guess, to the Rockies. But he had a lot of nice things to say about the fans and everything. I'm sure it's always interesting coming back. Probably a little more weird when you're not playing as much. But so always good to see the reunions there. Always a good reminder of the past, and an interesting situation there as well, where you're like, maybe the Rockies did see a little bit more and were on it when it came to the injuries, or they were just that confident in Ezekiel Tovar, who Trevor Story gave high praise to, said kept the tradition alive. So it's clear that Rockies shortstops know about the success that they've had, the legacies that they have left, and what it means to be a Rockies shortstop. If Trevor Story's even bringing that up in the interviews there as well. He gave some insight too into his last time in Colorado and how it ended. And so there's a lot of good quotes and a lot of good interviews with Trevor Story that you should go check out from your favorite media personalities, because they're always eager to talk to him. They all got good relationships with Trev after covering him for so many years. But anyway, that is going to do it for today's episode of Locked on Rockies. Thank you so much for joining us and making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back in action tomorrow, recapping more Rockies action right here on the Locked on Rockies podcast on YouTube and in your podcast feeds. When you like the videos, when you subscribe, when you leave reviews, really do help the show grow. So I really, really appreciate that, folks. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked on MLB. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked on Broncos, Locked on Avalanche, Locked on Nuggets, and Locked on Buffs, all available free and streaming as well. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked on Rockies podcast.